So migration has never been easy, and it's not getting any easier. When my time came, because I was born in Canada and I came here, and I chose that I wanted to stay, I began that process. And at the time there was lots of avenues for me to pursue, anything from a sporting visa, that would eventually keep me here, a business visa because I was managing a business. So there was plenty of avenues, but it wasn't an easy process. And there was some highs and lows through that. Sometimes when they wasn't moving fast enough, or I felt that it could possibly go against me. Eventually it all worked out, but I wouldn't say it was smooth sailing all the way. Like any application and anything that deals with the government department, you're going to have your ups and downs, but you just got to hope that in the end you get there. I would recommend to any person. Australia has a good sense of humor, and so it wasn't the fact that they called me Canadian, it was the word before or after Canadian, and what was explained to me is the fact that they're actually talking to you means they're accepting you. So I think that Australia, like Canada, is one of the least racist countries in the world, and I found that most people are very accepting here. As long as you accept them, they're Australian. They don't have to become what you are. You have to become what they are. For any migrant that's wishing to come here, I think you can easily be accepted, and there's a lot of opportunities. So I saw that very early on, and I found myself fitting into this community very easily, and I became part of the community. I got into sports and I got into social clubs, and I became Australian in that sense, and then I became an Australian myself. I think it was year 2002 I got my citizenship, so it's a lucky day for someone to look forward to.
Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Larrakia people. We recognize their continuing connection to land, water, and community, and pay our respects to their elders, past and present and emerging. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Let's take a moment to appreciate the deep history and culture of this place as we commence our event. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining us today. Before we dive into our exciting agenda, let's quickly cover some important housekeeping rules to ensure our event runs smoothly. So please find your seats promptly. If you need our assistance, our staff is here to help. So we're all wearing black and we all have a name tag. That's our staff. Please take a moment to locate the nearest emergency exits, which is right here behind me and another one in front of me. In the unlikely event of an emergency, please follow the instructions of our staff. Restrooms are available to your right just before the exit. We encourage your active participation. And after the show, we will push the chairs back so that we can have a full open house with a big space to mingle with each other. And I suspect that more people will be coming as we progress with the event. So thank you for your attention to these details. We're committed to making this event both enjoyable and safe for everyone. Now let's get started and have a wonderful time together. So this afternoon, We are privileged to be here right now in this event called Greener Pasture, a Migrant's Tale, featuring Sean Johnston, Series 2. Okay? This is a heartfelt initiative aimed at bridging gaps and fostering understanding within our vibrant Darwin community. Most of us, if not all of us here, are migrants. We all came to Australia to seek a greener pasture or a better life, and each one of us has a unique story. Together, our stories tell tales of courage, resilience, and hope that often are not heard loud enough. Our goal is therefore to bring these narratives to the forefront, to acknowledge the challenges faced during migration, and at the same time to celebrate the incredible strength of the people migration journeys breed. We are here not just to listen, but to learn and extend our empathy, to support each other, and to realize that we are not alone in this foreign country that we now call home. Because of us, migrants, our community thrives. We are not just the service workers, but also dependable constituents and productive members of society. So, in the words of Hamilton the musical, immigrants, we get the job done. So let us remember that every story shared from this day forward is a step towards a much richer Darwin. Without further ado, let's welcome an inspiring individual to our stage. We all just know him as the owner, the Canadian owner of Salvatores Cafe. But what you don't know is that this guy was also a migrant, just like you and me, who started out with nothing. So wouldn't you like to know? Wouldn't you like to know how it all started for him? How many years ago? I have no idea. We'll let him tell the story of his journey. Yeah? Yes? All right, guys. So without further ado, let's all welcome Sean Johnston.
Thank you very much. Well, I hope I've got something to share with you that will be entertaining and informative. Thanks, Carol. That was very nice of what you said. And the first thing I will say is you were saying that everybody is a migrant. Well, there was a very famous politician named Bronwyn Bishop who said last year, it doesn't matter whether you came here 65,000 years ago or 6 years ago, we all came here sometime. So you have to think about that. Everyone in Australia came here at some time. I am an Australian citizen. I have a passport, just like every other Australian, and if I travel, my passport's as good as anybody else's. But I'm also a Canadian citizen. That's where I was born. And I feel proud of that, and I don't think anyone should ever drop their previous citizenship. But I do hold my passport I'm thankful for having it. And I've seen the challenges faced by other people to get theirs, and I think mine is valuable to me as it would be for other people. And I can remember the day I got it. I can remember the day I first came to Australia, and I can remember deciding to come to Australia. I was 19, and it was I turned 19 in January, and I arrived here in April 1990. And in fact, there was a pilot strike on just before that, and they told me I would never get around Australia because all the domestic fares were closed up and I might have to bus it around. And if I took a bus, it might take me days and days to get somewhere because it's so big. But I came anyway. I didn't know anybody here. Back in Canada, I had been a manager for fast food, McDonald's, when I was 15. I'd worked in a restaurant, worked my way up to be a chef, and I also worked in a bakery. So I had some skills. And I thought I'll just come to Australia. I was playing rugby in Canada, and I thought I'd just like to do that for a year. I'm a young fella. I can get a visa to go as a working holiday visa, and I'll travel around Australia for a year and then come back to Canada and figure out what I'm going to do in life. And I remember arriving in Sydney, this big place. I came from Toronto, which is 4 million people, and Sydney is equally as big. But everyone was so nice. In fact, my first few hours, I got off and went to the Rocks in Sydney, checked into this hotel, went downstairs. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning. I was at a pub having a beer at 9 a.m. I ordered a counter meal, and I put some coins into what we call a pokey machine here in Australia, and I won some credits. And I thought, well, that's just what you get. You just win credits. So I sat down to eat my meal, and the Australian bartender came over and said, mate, did you cash those in? And I said, they're just credits. And he said, no, you get to collect them. And so I won about $20 or $30. And so here I was at 9 o'clock in the morning having a beer, a counter meal, and I just won $30. I said, how good is this country? I love this country. This is really good. So my plan was to go to Alice Springs and spend maybe a few months there and become Australian as far as learn about Australia, and then travel around a little bit. But when I got to Alice Springs, I realized that people are really good. They're not city folk. They're more small town folk, but they were nice folk. And I found a rugby team, and I started getting into the community a little bit. I like to use the word assimilate, but probably is integrate's a better word. Is I learned what Australians do. And they took to me very quickly. At first, as you can hear my accent, you might think I'm American. But once they found out that I'm Canadian, oh well. And since I've been here this long, I've found that Canadians and Australians treat each other as cousins you haven't met yet. So we all have the same sort of lifestyle. So once the rugby players and supporters found out who I was embraced. And I don't think that's unique to Canadians. I think a lot of cultures, as long as they come here with the thinking that I want to live like Australians, what it is they do, you'll be very welcomed here. And so when I was in Alice Springs, through that, I played rugby for about 6 months, and I was thinking of leaving because the restaurant that I worked in Toronto had opened a few restaurants in Australia. It's called The Keg, and I called one of the kegs in Victoria and said, I'm coming. And they said, oh, wonderful, we need your help. And then the rugby team came to me and said, you're leaving? And I said, yeah, well, I've been here for a few months. What if we found you a job? If we got you a job opening up this new Red Rooster chicken shop, would you be interested in staying? And I thought, well, that's a good opportunity, so why not? So they started the process. I never did call the keg and tell them I wasn't coming, but that was probably a sad thing. So I ended up opening this Red Rooster for the family. And I did that for a year. And there's a cinema complex in Alice Springs. And the owner came and saw me and said, look, I'm looking for a manager. Do you know anybody? And I said, not really. He said, what about you? And so we chatted about it. And I thought it was a good fit. Even though I hadn't done cinemas, I thought it would be a good fit. So I ended up doing that for 5 years in Alice Springs. And during that process, I did want to stay. And I rang up immigration. And the funny thing is, they said to me, when I first contacted this girl, I said, I want to look at staying. What do I do? And she said, are you American? I said, no, I'm Canadian. And she said, oh, that's okay then. And I thought, oh, geez, what if I had been American? That might not have been good. And further story to that, I did come up to Darwin from Alice Springs a couple of years after that, and I caught up with this girl. I kept her details, and she was just working temporary on the phones at immigration, and we still had a good laugh about it. She thought that was pretty funny, and we're still friends to this day. So anyway, once I let it known in Alice Springs that I wanted to stay, everyone was very helpful. And I don't think that's unique to me as a Canadian or a male or a young guy or a rugby player. I found Australians to be very welcoming. And they may bring up your ethnicity. I was called a Canadian something. Depends on what it was, sometimes on the rugby field. And Australians put it to me that it's not derogatory, it's not meant to be mean. It's their way of recognizing you. And they're aware of you and don't feel that you're being talked down to. And I always felt that way. So since I've been in here, in those first few years, I felt welcoming to Australia. I did like the climate, coming from Canada and the snow. I was quite happy to live in a warmer climate. And I was still young. I was just in my early 20s, and I was running this cinema. And the people that owned the cinema had bought a block of land here in Darwin, right in the CBD. It was called the post office. That was our center post office, and this family, long-term Darwin family, had purchased this land and said to me, look, we're going to build this big building, and on the ground floor, on that corner, we want to put a cafe. And I said, well, I've got that experience. I've got the fast food, the chef. Perfect. Would you consider coming up, leaving this great job you've got in Alice, to open up this chance? And I said, sure. I'm young. I would have been for 26ish, I suppose. And I was brash, and I thought, sure, I'll do that. So the plans were underway. Unfortunately, about a month before I came up, my father died. And I thought, oh no, is this some sort of omen? Am I not supposed to be here? So I went home for the funeral, and my family kicked me back. And they said, you get back to Australia. And that's where you seem to be enjoying yourself at this point. So back I went, and up I came to Darwin, and I opened Salvatores. And admittingly, Canadians are not known for great coffee, but I had some good teachers back in Alice Springs, so I was able to open up Salvatores. And by this point, I think I was well accepted. I'd been in the territory for a long time. I got into the community, got to know people, which I think is really important for everybody. If you come to a country and you're choosing to live there, and you segregate yourself, or you only surround yourself, if I had surrounded myself with only Canadians, I don't think I would have been accepted as what I was. But I chose to get outside my comfort zone and mingle with Australians. If it's going out and having a few too many beers, that's what I was going to do. If I have to go to the race course and have a punt, that's what I was going to do. And I did all that stuff. I was lucky to meet some Aboriginals very early on, and we bonded very well. Canadians are seen internationally as very accepting of everybody. I grew up with every culture on my street back in Canada, and I think Aboriginals knew that pretty quickly. So I bonded and made some great friends who are still my friends today. So I got to see the cultural side of Australia very early on. I got to mingle with everyday Australians, and they saw that I was contributing to their community. I wasn't here just to get a job, maybe open a business, take money and leave. I was here to participate and be part of this country. And I don't know there'd be ever a time when I didn't thankful that I was being accepted. To the average Australian, I was very thankful that, hey, thanks for letting me be here, you know? And again, it's not to harp on about other countries. I didn't have to be here. Canada is equally a good country. There was no prosperity here for me that I wouldn't have found in Canada. In fact, probably negative for me. All my family's in Canada. But I always tell people that I chose to come here. This was my choice. So I've come from one good country to another good country by choice. And I rave about it. I talk it up, and I say that Australia is a lovely country. It's never been lost on me the opportunities that I was given to become an Australian. It was not an easy process. Even back then, there was so many different avenues for me to become an Australian, but the process was never easy. So it's not getting easier, or maybe it's getting harder, in that there's a lot of countries who see Australia as a great place to settle. Politically, we're stable. Our economy is strong. Jobs are in abundance. And so I think the international community is very big on this. So I came up to Darwin, opened up Salvatores, made sure I employed the locals. That's what I was interested in. And for 27 years, we seem to have managed the ups and downs. We've everything from the introduction of the GST into Australia, which was a big thing for us. A lot of the economy was a bit funny about it. We had the collapse of our domestic airline Ansett. We had 9/11 in America, and that affected Darwin even. It was that particular day when 9/11 happened, it was in the evening time, about 11 or 12 o'clock at night. We were closing up, and we had an American Navy ship in, and there were several thousand. And I had just finished and gone home, and my manager rang me up, and he said, "Boss, you got to see, all these Americans are walking through the streets, and they're leaving." I said, "That's a bit strange." So we turned on the TV, and at that time, we only had about 2 TV stations, but they were on all of a sudden. And I'm like, oh, geez. And it was like CNN showing this plane hitting a tower. And anyway, so the next morning I went to work, and a lot of people didn't know. A lot of Darwin people just didn't know. And the newspaper obviously didn't have a chance to do it, but everything looked eerie, and it affected us as a business. So even though it was in America, even though America wasn't at war yet, Darwin still is part of that international connection. And we rebounded from that. We had the Bali bombing when some radicals in Bali, which is Darwin and all of Australia's holiday destination, some radical bombed a nightclub that Australians frequent. That affected Darwin a little bit. We had the global financial crisis. We've now had COVID. And now we're having a correction where our interest rates on home loans and our general cost of goods are going up. So everything's been a challenge, but somehow we manage. Darwin is the land of opportunity. There's a lot of jobs always going here. I would say that as far as the unemployment rate, we've always been one of the lowest. It's easy to get a job here. If you really want to look, you might not get the exact job you want. I know there's a lot of, for example, Indian IT people that are coming here, and they're finding that they can't quite get a job in their field. And what I've recommended is just get a job, mate. Anything, doesn't matter. If it's stocking a shelf at Woolies, if it's driving an Uber car, it doesn't matter. Get into the community, get to meet, make some friends. If you're a church person, go to church. If you're a sports person, play a sport. And you'll get to know people. Next thing you know, you'll be throwing around the word mate and g'day and all that sort of stuff, and you'll probably find that some doors open for you. So Darwin's always been that sort of place to me, and I've watched people come in here. We're very thankful that we've got people like Carol and her business to help people, because even someone like me who's been sponsoring since 2002, my first sponsored person was from Paris, France. His name was Pierre-Antoine Redoubassot. He was I know, I can always remember that, right? Thankfully my Canadian French, right? And Pierre was a pastry chef from a 1 Michelin star restaurant, which means he's very good. He was very good for us. So he was my very first one under the skilled migration scheme. And so I've been doing it a long time. And I would say back then it wasn't easy and it wasn't hard. You could navigate it. And I feel that way now, but I don't have the time. And things are changing so quickly that people like Carol, that's what she does. In my line of work, I want to be around people that know their job better than me. And so migration agents always haven't had the best image. Coming up, back in those early years, there was no regulation, there was no requirements, there was no training. I could be a migration agent if I really wanted to. And to a point, I probably knew after my first few sponsored people that I could probably recommend a lot of stuff that you didn't have to pay someone to do your paperwork. You could probably do some of it yourself. But it became a lot more complicated, and migration agents started to increase, but a lot of them were a little bit dodgy. They weren't that good. And I know that some of them have come from working for immigration and now gone off on their own, which is good because they bring all that experience. But with Carol coming here, and that's what she focuses on, I think we're quite fortunate that someone can navigate all the hurdles, and it's not easy at all. So we're fortunate to have her here and being able to answer those questions and finding ways. And the local immigration people will admit it's not even easy for them. I ask them questions, how do we do this? What's the plan for this? And they say that it's ever changing and it's even hard for them to make recommendations. So someone like Carol, that this is what she does day in, day out, she's abreast of all the different changes. So we're lucky to have her here. We did have the local migration government department had brought up our federal minister back in maybe August, I guess it was. And so I was invited as a business owner, and I was the only business owner that was invited. There was representatives from the healthcare industry, the aged care industry, the automotive, to give our federal minister, so this is the highest guy in the land, second to the Prime Minister, here in Darwin, and he was joined by our highest territory minister and another member of parliament. And their job, they wanted to be here to hear our experiences on skilled migration. That's all they wanted to hear. And so I had my 5 minutes in front of him, and I sat right opposite him, and I explained to him that that I've been doing this since 2002, and that it was vital that we had solid, skilled migrants, because we will not find enough skilled people And we get drained. I mean, some of the people that have gone through hospitality and things get poached and go to other countries. So we got to keep replenishing our own stocks. And in order for us to do that, we need to bring in people that can help us train our locals, and we need to increase our population of skilled migrants. And this is what I told this Andrew Giles, federal minister. But I also said to him that I'm going to talk at a school a little bit, and a country like the Philippines, we really need to focus on this. And I said that the dangle carrot of permanent residency makes a big difference to a country like the Philippines. I said, coming from Canada, I don't need your residency. My life was good over there. I've chosen to come here. Ireland, England, Germany, their lifestyles are fine. You know, they've got lots of prosperity. It might be a lifestyle choice that they come here, but it's not for, you know, the family tree is fine. But having firsthand experience, my wife being Filipina, it matters to the Filipinos, and the opportunity it arises for them is dramatic. This family tree takes a swing that changes generational for Filipinos. And I said, they again, I use this word, assimilate, he likes integrate, with Australians very easily. They're a moderate religious lot. They're not radical in anything. English is their second language, but in a lot of times it's their first language. They speak it just as easily as we do. They're family orientated, they're sporting orientated, they're hard workers, they're prosperous. So I said that's what we should be focusing on, is people that really want to come here, not people that want to come here and suck off the Australian system. Filipinos will integrate very well with us. And I said we've already got a big Filipino section of the community, and I've been up to some of their festivals here, and I think they're amazing. And he agreed with me. He was fine with that. He said, I understand that, what you're saying. There's certain countries, well, they can't tell you, we're going to target here and not target there. He sort of gave an indication that he understood what I was talking about. So you could say the Filipinos that have come before the next ones have done the right thing by Australia and created a good environment for Australians and built a legacy. So if there's Filipinos out there that are thinking of coming to Australia, Darwin is certainly a good place to be. It's not too big. It's homey. It's easy to get around, and there's lots of Filipinos here. So I think if people are thinking about migrating into Australia, I can only see positives. I don't see the economy changing in such a way that it would not be prosperous for your family to come here. I think you're accepted. There's no backlash against Asians or blacks or whatever might be happening in the rest of the world. It doesn't happen here like that. The Australians will give you a fair go. That's a very Australian saying. I'll give you a fair go. As long as you contribute, they'll accept you. And you got to accept them too. Not everything's perfect, but Australia is the country of prosperity, and I think it's because of the population being as low as it is. I just think there's so much opportunity here that it's going to explode. And I think, you know, we've got a new campus here in the city that's not far away from opening, so I can see there's going to be a lot of international students coming here, and they're going to send that back saying what a great country we have. And how welcoming Australians are. So everything's all in place. The moons are in alignment for Darwin and Australia to benefit from migration. And I can't see why a lot of countries would not see this as an opportunity. Having been to the Philippines, and I know that Carol is Filipino, it's hard. It's very hard over there. And I tell a lot of the locals here, you have no idea what difficulty is. You can go to school, you can get a good education, you can maybe get a job, but it's hard, you know. Whereas here, we take it for granted that in 1 hour's pay could be more than a Filipino might make in a day or something like that. You have no idea. And unless you've been over there, almost every Australian should have to go to Southeast Asia for a couple of weeks to get a more of appreciation. But we do have a very lucky country, and I have seen Filipinos come over here and really show their appreciation. And they're very happy-go-lucky. So I think all the formulas here, we need more skilled migrants. We need skilled migrants to bring their families to be part of the Darwin culture. We need to reward migration agents like Carol so that we can bring these people in a lot quicker than what they are. I know that I'm looking forward at staff that I can get, but it's frustrating sometimes that it's not simpler. But I can't change the system. I talk to some of the people that have a say in that, and I'm trying my best. But right now we're working with the system, and someone like Carol can steer the ship for us to get some more people in here. So I know that if people are watching this, seeing this, hearing about it secondhand, I would encourage you to come to Australia. And certainly Darwin is a nice place to start. You might miss the big city down the track, and after a few years you might want to venture out to one of the bigger cities. But I do know some people that came here as hotel workers, and they went to the big cities, and now they're making their way back to Darwin because they see that it was a little easier here. It's not so congested, there's not so much traffic, and I think they're able to bond with the Filipino community as well. But Darwin as a whole has been nice, and I know that Salvatores has made its place in the middle of Darwin, and anyone's got that opportunity. If down the track someone comes over and they want to start their own business, even though they're not Australian, once they get their residency or something, I'm sure there's an avenue for everyone to have a go. As I said, Australians say that, have a go. So if you've got ambition, certainly Darwin is a great place to start. And I do know of some migrants who have gone on to work in the government sector, and they themselves have jobs that are solid in the government sector. So here's the government allowing you to come to this country, and then they're going to employ you to make those decisions. So and there wouldn't be very many times when you don't ring a government department and you hear an ethnic voice on the sideline. It might be Filipino, it might be Chinese, it might be something, but that's what it is. So Australia is very accepting, and I'm claimed to that. So here I am 34 years later since I arrived. I think I got 3 more weeks, and it'll be my anniversary since I arrived here. So I would encourage anyone, and I hope down the track Carol can keep assisting us businesses and bringing more people here.
All right.
All right.
We've got questions for you, Sean.
Fire away.
Oh, you want me to stand here? Oh.
Oh, and I should contend, I am married, and I'm married to a Filipina. So there you go. There's my my link, and I'm not
just to make it clear.
I'm not spurking the Filipinas because I married one. I'm spurking them because I have been there, and my experience in the Filipino community here in Darwin has built this image of them that I'm comfortable talking about them.
Great. So we've got some questions for you from our audience. The first question is, where did Salvatores come from?
So we were thinking of a name, and there was a few names thrown around. So my bosses from the cinema, who had bought the block of land, the family, again throwing around some names. One of the brothers, his name translates from English to Italian as Salvatore. And when I asked about that question, what does that mean? It means the Savior. And I was a bit egotistical at the time, and I thought that's a perfect name for a cafe. Sounds Italian, the Savior. And that's where we came up with our own emblem, which kind of looks angelic, which I like to think that I am. So that's where Salvatore's came. It means the Savior, and it just sounds like a good name for a cafe.
Okay. And just to follow up on that, why did you choose Filipinos as your staff?
I don't think I went out of my way to specifically hire Filipinos, as much as I didn't go out of my way to hire Italians or anything like that. When I first opened, I certainly looked at the local staffing because I wanted to be a local cafe. Darwin can be a bit up and down when it's tourist season, and so some of the businesses will hire backpackers, but they leave. and I want to be known as a place that has locals. I would admittedly say that, from when I opened for the first 10 to 15 years, it probably wouldn't have been wise to have a big black African on my counter, or a big Filipino, or something that doesn't look either Italian or Australian. And that's not to say that Australians are prejudiced in any way, but you're an Italian cafe in the middle of Darwin. That's what it is. And I would put that to, if I go to an African restaurant and I saw a little Chinese man cooking, I think that's not right. So that was back, maybe 15 to 20 years ago. Things have changed. You can't go to a hotel. You can't go speak on the phone without hearing an ethnic voice. And I think Australians, as I said, they're very accepting that we've evolved. We can't be either Aboriginal or Caucasian Australians. That's not going to happen. I mean, the history of Darwin is there's a big Chinese influence, there's a Greek, there's an Italian, so it's always been here. But I think when it comes to frontline staff and people coming to work here, Australians have really accepted in the last 10 to 15 years that we need that migration, and they're very accepting. And it's, to be honest, I don't even think it's an issue anymore in the fact they wouldn't recognize someone as being different, because it's just so common now that it's almost like Canada in the sense that when I first came here, I wouldn't say there was as big an ethnic mix as what I grew up with, but definitely there is now, and everyone's accepting. So Australians accept it, and whoever I put on the counter now to serve, they trust that I've given them the nod of approval. So I'm happy to put anybody in there that's a good worker. And every time we've given a Filipino a go, they've turned out to be fantastic. So at the moment we have 2 of them on the front counter, my waiter supervisors. They've both been granted their visa has been accepted. So the nomination's in, the visa has now, the application has been accepted. So I think they're 2 years until they can apply for permanent residency under the DAMA program. And they're both from, I'm going to say it wrong again, Bacolod, right.
You said it right.
Did I? Not too bad, eh? So I got 2 of those. I've got one in the kitchen, RC. He's from Pampanga, and his nomination has just been accepted. And we're working on another one, and hopefully we're bringing in a pastry chef. So if more Filipinos come my way, then I'm very happy to take them on.
And I also have a question, like when you were starting, were there a lot of Canadians in Darwin or Alice Springs already? Because I haven't met any other Canadian here apart from you.
We don't come this far. Don't forget, when you look at the Earth, right, we're on the opposite side. It's a long way to go, right? It's a heck of a trip, right? And if you could take a direct flight, I think it's about 22 hours, if you could just fly. It doesn't happen like that. My first flight was actually Toronto to Hawaii, which was about 10 hours, and then 10 hours from Hawaii to Sydney, and then another 5 hours from Sydney to Darwin. So it's a long trek to get up here, yeah?
Is there a Canadian community in Darwin?
There is. I'm just trying to remember. In Alice, I don't think there was any Canadians in Alice. I was the only one. And being a young fella, they thought that was pretty funny. And then when I came up to Darwin, relatively quick on, I did meet, he's still here, he's still my friend. His name is Wade, and he comes from a really small town near where I'm from. He helped them open Crocosaurus Cove. He was the photographer there. Oh. And then across the street from that, upstairs, there was a restaurant. It was a Mexican restaurant, and they were Canadian. And I think that was it at the time. There was only those 3 people. There are a few in town now. In fact, there was a French Canadian that came to town after Salvatore's had opened, maybe 2 or 3 years. And I introduced her to an Australian. They had a real estate business, and they're married with 2 kids now. And the kids are about 15. So I guess we assimilate too, the Canadians. But no, there's not a lot of us. There's more Filipinos here than there are Canadians, that's for sure.
Okay, now we've got a question from Harris. Do you follow or admire any chefs on social media, and why? Yes and no, I guess. I mean, the rich ones. I mean, I think
You know, maybe Gordon Ramsay swears even more than I do, so I think he could tone that down. And I think a bit of his swearing is for theatrics anyway. Jamie Oliver's a nice guy, and they make a lot of money. So I'll certainly go with that and say, well, they're rich, right? I probably haven't, there was Nigella. Actually, no, there is a Canadian. She was she had a show called Sugar on the Canadian network, and she did pastry. And I really liked what she did. I just thought it was home pastry stuff. And when I was in the Philippines, and I'm not going to remember his name, he was a nice guy, and he was trying to mix Filipino cuisine with international cuisine. So he might have made a pasta sauce similar to Bicol Express, but he made it with pasta. So I admired the fact that he was doing this fusion thing in the Philippines. So there's not probably one specific one, but you can't turn on the TV now and not see a chef talking it up, or people wanting to be chefs, which I think it's a great thing. But the one thing I'll tell people, if you're aspiring to be a chef, any idiot can make an omelet one time. That's easy. But try making it constantly, and then try having a menu of 30 or 40 dishes that you're going to get a range of dishes that take a range of skills, and making sure they all arrive at the customer's table at the same time. That's a chef. So if you're aspiring, it's possible, but yes, there's a few of them out there that make a lot of money, and good luck to them.
All right. Thanks for that answer. Now we've got, I don't know whose question, who came up with this question, but the question is, what is your signature dish, and what do people love about it?
Probably the first one that comes to mind is our salt and pepper squid. I've always been into that. When I came to Australia, Canadians not so big. And I remember going to this little Italian place in Sydney, and their squid was just amazing. It's not calamari rings, which people know. It looks like they're breadcrumbed and they're big, huge things. It's not that. It's baby squid that's been portioned, cleaned, and treated nicely. And I remember having this thing, that's what I want to create when I have an opportunity. So it took me a little while to figure out how they did it. And to this day, I don't think we've ever disappointed anyone with our salt and pepper squid. I think our range of Italian dishes, our pastas and stuff, have done Italy proud. I don't think we've bastardized their recipes. And one of the things that I brought from Canada was a Caesar salad. I just think a lot of times people just put a bit of leaves and a bit of dressing and a bit of cheese and call it even. But we make our own dressing, we cook fresh bacon and all that sort of stuff. So I think we've done a really good Caesar salad. But certainly for those that come to Darwin, find Salvatore's, have the squid. I guarantee you win.
Okay. Just to throw it out there, my favorite dish is the ribs.
The ribs. Okay,
that's what I always order.
Well, that's the Canadian thing, right? I have gone back for visits, and they have a thing called Rib Fest, where they set up these huge trucks and they compete. I've got an older brother who's in radio. He's been doing that. He's the morning man for the last 35, 40 years. Mm-hmm. So he had asked me, when you're next in town, would you be one of the judges? And hello, of course I would. And so we go there to this huge park, and there's all these ribbers, and they take it seriously. Big smokers, big barbecues, and I get to judge them. And there's no bad ones. It's like they're all good. And so probably about 15 years ago, I said, we're going to do ribs. I know we're a cafe, but we're going to do ribs. It's hard, and Filipinos will understand this. There's certain ingredients we just can't get here. It's just different, you know. And I couldn't get the same ribs, but I found something that I thought I could turn into good ribs. We marinate, we smoke, we make our own barbecue sauce, and I think the final product has proven itself. Yeah. And if I had to judge my own ribs in Canada, I think I'd give myself a 7 out of 10. I think I do okay.
And Rib Fest, we should do something like that here.
I keep telling them, and they all look at me and say, when are you going to do Rib Fest? When I find another 5 minutes of my day, yeah, sure.
Something to look forward to.
I know, it's a great idea.
Yeah. Okay, the final question from Anna. Do you have any plans to expand Salvatore's or branch out in other states?
You know, we were open for about 2 years, and someone came to me and said, can I franchise Salvatore's? And I said, no, that's it. This is me, the only one. Over the years, I've probably had either myself or I have helped maybe 10 restaurants, even one in the Philippines. And what I've learned about me is I enjoy being hands-on. And if I can't be hands-on, I'm not enjoying myself. And most recently, I set up a barbecue shop, which was based on Mang Inasal. And I can pat myself on the back. I think we did good product, we did good chicken, we did good pork barbecue. But staffing was a challenge. And I know Filipinos come to me and say, whatever happened to, I couldn't find enough staff that I was comfortable with. And they're like, no. And we get visiting Filipinos and they say, didn't I hear that there was I said, yeah, that was me. Why did you close it? We didn't have enough staff. So I was happy with what we did, but food and beverage is a challenge. So I think for me personally, and my family say, if you ever came back to Canada, would you open up Salvatore's? I don't know. I'm getting old now. I'm 53 and I've been doing this since, I've been in fast food or food businesses since I was 13. So I think I've done 40 years of it. So I'm not too sure I would expand again. But Salvatore's has a pretty good formula and it works really well. But I think it's a younger person's game now.
Okay. So before we're just about to close our event, do you have any final message to the business owners like you out there?
I think
not just in restaurant. But
I think anyone who's been around for a little while knows the struggle. Actually, I just spoke to a guy just today. He's managing a business called Sea Swift, and if I understand them correctly, they're ship transporters. They transport goods by the ocean with ships out of Darwin and other places. And even he said they're bringing a lot of their staff from around Australia to work in Darwin because they don't have enough. And I said, is it highly skilled? And he said, not really, but we need to train up some people and we haven't been able to find people. So, I mean, that's way outside of my field, but there wouldn't be very many businesses that wouldn't have that sort of experience. Paspali Pearls, the biggest pearler in the world, will tell you how difficult it is for them to find staff. So from a business community, everyone's got the same problem. And even when I went back to Canada last year, even they were saying they were having skilled problems finding people. So you're not alone. Everyone's having them. It's not you. It's not the industry. But you need to align yourself, and I'll just blow your horn again, Carol, someone that's what they do every day. They need to know the ins and outs of the migration system and be able to navigate it and look to there for skilled people. And I bang on about the Philippines. I'm sure there's, I know there's some automotive shops in town that have Filipinos. I know there's a welding shop that have Filipinos. So they're out there, but we just need to align ourselves with reputable migration agents and look to there. Don't let that stop us from growing or cementing our business to be more solid. I probably made that mistake a little bit. I probably could have had a few more staff ready to go when I opened up the barbecue shop, and that's lesson learned. But the people are out there, and they want to work, and they want to work in Darwin. We just got to find them, and that's where you come in. That's your job.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Thanks for that. So as our evening comes to a close, I just want to extend a heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you who came and visited us, for being a part of the second series of Greener Pasture, A Migrant's Tale. Thank you to Salvatores Cafe, Enhance NT, and DKJ Studio. So this afternoon, again, we have shared a story of journey, struggle, and triumph. We heard a tale that hopefully moved us and inspired us and reminded us of the resilience and courage that define the migrant experience. So let's carry forward the spirit of understanding and unity that we've fostered here tonight. Let's continue to support each other, to grow together, and to make Darwin not just a place we live in, but a home we build together. So now we want to award the certificate and token of appreciation to Sean. Okay. You need a chair?
Thank you, Miss Eden. Look at me.
Yay, there's some fresh flowers.
Thank you very much.
Here you go.
Isn't that nice? Thank you so much.
And move a little bit.
Totally.